Coming up next, it's Chowder on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's Total Drama Island, only on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's Johnny Test on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's Courage the Cowardly Dog on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's Pokemon Diamond and Pearl on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's The Land Before Time on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's Goosebumps on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's Billy and Mandy's Big Boogie Adventure on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's Edd N Eddy on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's Camp Lazlo on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's the Cartoon Show on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's My Gym Partner's a Monkey on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's Tom and Jerry on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's Master Control on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's Pokemon on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's Wacko's Wish on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's Bugs Bunny's 1001 Rabbit Tales on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's Chicken Run here on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's a Pup Named Scooby-Doo on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's the new Scooby-Doo Movie on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's Scooby-Doo and the Reluctant Werewolf on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's Chill Out Scooby-Doo on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's Scooby-Doo and Where's My Mummy on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's Scooby-Doo and the Loch Ness Monster on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's What's New Scooby-Doo on Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's Scooby-Doo Where Are You on Cartoon Network.